All right, so in this video, I'm gonna be going over the 3-step process I've used to grow my personal brand to almost 70,000 followers, and the exact same process I use when I work with my clients who are 6- and 7-figure entrepreneurs to help them build their personal brands. All right, so in this video, you're gonna learn how to build authority with a clear content strategy that positions you as the go-to leader in your space, attract high-value followers who are gonna convert into clients, collaborations, and long-term opportunities, and build a content system that's going to scale with your brand without you burning out. So your business is going to keep growing even when you're not posting. So who am I? Well, I'm Jack. I picked up a camera while I was in college and was able to build a 20K per month media company at 22. And as I mentioned, grow my personal brand to 60,000 followers. Graduated with a commerce and economics degree, but wasn't passionate about doing that. And I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I quit to go all in on my business. And over the last 6 or so months, I've helped over 100 creators and entrepreneurs grow their personal brands and monetize their audience. And so with that experience, I created the Solopreneur System, which is a proven framework for helping these 6- and 7-figure entrepreneurs and founders build authentic, high-status personal brands without the guesswork or editing. Here are some of the creators and entrepreneurs I've worked with in the past to give you a sense of the clientele. So let's get into it. Let's get into the value here. So the Solopreneur System is my 3-step process to build your personal brand. And there's 3 sections. So the first is Founders Flow. And this is really the positioning. This is where we clarify your story, your values and belief, your personality, and finally, who is your ideal audience or your target follower. Next, we move on to Visual Authority. So this is all about visual branding. This is looking at your recording setup, getting shot lists, knowing actually what to film for all your content, creating a branding kit so we're clear on our colors, our fonts, and how our videos are actually going to look. And finally, visual metaphors. What symbols do we want to be associated with? And this all sort of depends on what we've clarified in the first step in Founders Flow. Then the last step is Content Operating System. So this is where we look at content strategy, ideation, content formats, content types, storytelling and scripting, and finally the editing pipeline and actually managing your editing team. So now let's talk about each of them in a little bit more depth. Looking at Founders Flow, there are 3 important pieces to this. The first is clarifying your mission and your message. So this is where we look at your story, right? Where you came from, what experiences shaped you into the person that you are, your beliefs and values. What do you believe? What do you value? And later on, we're going to use these to connect and build trust with our ideal audience. Next, we're going to look at your purpose or your mission. Like, why are you posting? Why are you creating content? What is the overall goal of building your personal brand and putting yourself out there? And finally, most importantly, we really want to understand what's going to make you relatable and followable. Because in order for someone to want to follow you, you need to be someone worth following. So figuring out your unique characteristics and what's going to differentiate you from all the other guys in your space is super important. Next, we're going to look at your unique mechanism, especially if sort of the main goal of building your personal brand is to monetize. We need to be talking about, at least in some of our content, what makes our mechanism different. So what is your business model? How do you get clients results? What is your professional experience? All this we need to understand before going to the next step and being able to actually start making content. This is critical to do at the very beginning. So lastly, we want to figure out your ideal follower. So who are you going to be speaking to in your content? Who is your offer for if you really want to monetize your personal brand? What are the beliefs or limiting beliefs of your target audience so that when we start making content, we can shift those beliefs? What's their dream outcome? What can we talk about as the end goal of our follower or our clients working with us? And finally, we need to understand what content that these people already interact with or like so that we can shift and customize our content to fit what they're already interacting with. And so by doing these 3 steps, we're going to be able to clarify your unique positioning, story, and voice so that your content's going to reflect who you are and attract the right audience effortlessly. Step 2 is Visual Authority. And this step is frankly something that most people skip, and that's why their content looks so bad. So there's 2 steps here. The first is understanding how to film. And sort of that's very broad. So we're going to look at a bunch of things here. what gear you need, the settings of your camera and everything else. We're gonna look at lighting, how to set it up, how lighting shapes the image and how we can use it to our advantage, as well as composition. There's a bunch of different techniques that I teach my clients, just small things that make a huge difference in terms of how their end product and end video is gonna turn out. Next, we look at visual storytelling and shot lists, and knowing, when I sit down to record, what shots specifically am I going to need to get throughout the day to tell a compelling story when the editor goes to edit? And finally, it's great to look at inspiration, other people's content that's performing well or that just inspires you, and frankly, trying to copy what they're doing or at least take large inspiration from it, at least at the beginning when you're still trying to figure this stuff out. But having a good idea of a few creators who you sort of look up to in terms of the content they put out is really helpful. Next, we're going to create a branding toolkit. So this is sort of mine here. You can see the main colors I use, the fonts, and different mock-ups for both short form and my long-term content. We also get into sort of your brand core, your identity and style, and get very specific so that all the content visually looks very consistent. So as I mentioned, we look at fonts, both primary and secondary. We look at colors and really dive into more like that color psychology and what each color you're using is going to have an effect on the video and on your audience. And third, we look at overall visual style, which is sort of what these mock-ups symbolize. So when we do these steps effectively, we're going to be able to build a premium, consistent visual identity that makes your brand look as powerful as your results are and instantly commands respect and attention online. So the last step is the Content OS system. And this is broken down into strategy, storytelling or scripting, and our editing pipeline. So let's look at strategy. This is incredibly important. So we look at the content funnel. How do we create short form content and long form content and use those two to funnel people from Instagram to YouTube to build more trust and authority in the long form content and actually get people to want to work with you and buy from you. Next, we look at content types. So you can think of it as top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel. I like to call it audience, brand, and client building content, and really understanding with each piece of content that we put out in each video, it serves a very specific purpose. And we're not just posting randomly. We need to always be thinking about these three categories of content because they do completely different things. And finally, story sequences. Stories are the most underrated way to sell, first of all, and secondary, build connection on Instagram with your audience, because the people who are seeing your stories are typically the 20% that are most engaged with your content. So it's great to be able to build a relationship with them on the stories. So understanding exactly what to post, how many stories to post at once, what to say in those stories is all something we cover. Next, for storytelling or scripting, you can think of it both ways. We look at scripting or storytelling frameworks, whether that's the storytelling formula or the story selling, which we'll talk about next. We're going to look at selling through stories. So there's a very specific formula that is highly effective in actually getting people to scroll, watch a video, and then by the end of that video want to take action with you, whether it's DMing you a keyword, commenting a keyword, or just wanting to take the next step forward with you. There's a very systemized process, which I find super, super helpful as opposed to just sitting down and trying to write a script, and it saves a bunch of time. And last, I built out a ton of templates for specifically hooks and rehooks. A hook is typically the first 5 to 7 seconds of a video, and it's probably the most important section. So having a good database of those is super helpful in terms of actually starting the video and coming up with great video ideas. And then step 3 is the editing pipeline. So how do we go from ideation to actually producing finished content? There's a bunch of different steps and systems that I use, and I work with my clients to build out in their businesses. But here we really talk about how do you plan your content from video idea to basically complete it and post it. And there's a pipeline that we use on Notion. Next is managing your editing team. So understanding exactly how and where to upload all your footage and how to link it back to the content pipeline so that your editing team knows exactly what footage that they're looking for and how they can use that to build out the video that you had in your head when you were recording it. And lastly, reviewing the edited content and either approving the videos for posting or rejecting them, going back to the drawing board in terms of re-editing them and how to actually communicate that with the entire editing team is super important and super overlooked, honestly. So by understanding these 3 steps, we're going to be able to turn your message into a repeatable content system that's going to scale with you and drive inbound opportunities. Even when you're busy, working on the business, not actively posting content, it's just going to build that trust, that loyalty, and to continue attracting your ideal follower and growing your brand. So that's a 3-step process for growing your personal brand. If you're wondering what's next, there's a couple different things you can do now. So you can either click the link below in the description to book a free one-on-one strategy call with me, where we'll talk about where your brand currently is, the goals you have for it, and if I feel like we're a good fit, map out exactly how we'll be able to work together to achieve your personal branding goals. Or you can DM me Brand on Instagram and we'll chat. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.